So a couple of the projects that, like I said, we've done here recently in the past, just to jog your memory there. We purchased that 44 acres on the north end. We've upgraded the fueling center and we've replaced the beacon. Those are really the three projects we've done that have significance to the airport. The next couple things we want to do is actually, we need to purchase about 20 acres on the south end of the airport. And then we construct a 4,200 by 75 concrete runway. And then we also, at the same time, to address some safety area concerns, we need to reconfigure the turf runways a little bit. One of the unique things about Marion compared to a lot of airports is we actually have, 4, is that right? 4
Grass
turfs?
runways?
4, right? Right now? 3, 4. Well, I guess if you count the parallel to 1735, we have 3 or 4 grass runways. And the way they overlap doesn't make it the safest for the FAA purposes. And even though we're not an FAA airport, you try to kind of follow the rules. We just need to reconfigure them a little bit, but they're also getting to the point where they're rough. So they need to be smoothed out and reseeded. So that's another project we have on that 5-year list. And then as Jerry kind of mentioned, in that 6 to 10 year list, we want to expand the apron, because if we do build that new runway, there are going to be more people coming, especially if you have fuel available. You're going to get more air traffic. Just the less people need to cross into an airspace like Wichita when they're flying, they're not going to do it if there's availability of something else. So also, if you can then build hangars, whether it's T hangars or other hangars, and you have places to store aircraft and it's easy to get to, you're going to get people coming for that reason too. So we have both the apron and then a couple of hangars in that 6 to 10 year, as well as an AWOS. An AWOS is an automated weather service observation system, automated weather observation system. And what that does is it's a tower that sits out at the airport, and it clocks the weather 24 hours a day. And not only can the pilots call in on radio frequency and hear that weather when they're coming in, they know better what the weather conditions are on the ground, but it would also be open to the public. So at any point in time, anyone in Marion County can call up the Marion AWOS station and get an accurate weather report of what's going on right now, weather-wise. There's also the availability, a lot of the places put that on an internet site, so once again, it's open. It also helps the National Weather Service and some of those agencies, because they actually utilize some of those AWOS stations also as kind of a backup, a redundant system to their own weather data system. So that's another project, and KDOT funds those quite a bit. So everything we've listed in the top 6 to 10 year projects, except the hangars, KDOT is all for funding. KDOT will fund hangars, but they usually run out of their pot of money before they get down to hangars in the priority list. Yeah. So the hangars is a reason maybe to get on the federal list eventually, because the feds, they'll let you bank your money, and once you have 600,000 banked, you kind of get to, as long as you've met all your safety criteria, you get to pick what you want to spend it on, and then you can spend it on hangars. So there's some reasons to kind of play the money game from both sides, federal and state, to make sure that we're progressing into the future like what, you know, the city and the airport here would really benefit from. So,
Darren, right now though, you're saying to extend that runway, you're gonna have to go south, not north on our land?
right. So the land we purchased, there's a safety zone of 1,000 feet off the end of the runway that we have to keep completely clear of everything. Currently, we're in violation of that. We, on the 3 turf and the asphalt runway, right now, we don't own the proper safety zones off the ends of the runways. So that's something that it's happened over time. There's most of the small airports in Kansas don't. It's not unique to just Marion. It's just happened over time. You don't have to abide by them because you're not federally funded. It's just, the FAA puts out this guidance that says, here's what you should have to be the safest. So that safety zone, the land we purchased on the north end buys us that safety zone. So when we do this 4,200 foot runway, yes, we're moving it slightly into that new property, but not all the way. it will overlap into it, but not, we need to get some on the south end as well.
Primarily, it's the existing structures and the propane station.
Yeah, we can't get too close to that stuff.
And that's why we've got to stay back.
One benefit we do have, this was huge when we were looking at this, the first thing we usually run into when we do a full-blown ALP, the set you have in front of you, we take a look at the airspace for 2 miles around the entire airport and see if there's anything sticking up above 150 feet, above the height of the runway. Well, the nice thing for Marion is, the runway sets at one of the highest points. So, since it's already higher, there is nothing within that 2 mile radius that penetrates that 150-foot table out there. And that's, we don't have any other airports. There's always a cell tower, or a water tower, or a grain elevator, or some places where the airport sits in a valley, and now you've got hills on the sides, where trees and towers come into play. So that's one of the perks for Marion is you already have you don't have to worry about going out and like KDOT Aviation, if there was a cell tower, say a mile off the end of the runway, and it was gonna be an obstruction for flight, they would say you'd have to mitigate that tower, get rid of that tower before we'd give you the money to build a new runway. Well, you guys are already a step ahead. There's nothing out there that you have to convince them safety-wise you have to mitigate. You're already in the safest condition you can be.
If we're gonna have these larger airplanes coming in, is our parking large enough, or is that in the plan?
That's in the plan, that's in the 6 to 10 year plan to increase that apron, construct an apron.
Okay,
For right now, it would be, and eventually we would probably need to move the fueling island also, but that'd be after we construct an apron. Right now, with the runway where it's at, we wouldn't wanna move the fueling out there any closer.
Yeah.
But once we move the runway over to a new location, the existing runway actually becomes a parallel taxiway. So now we can put parking right off of that parallel taxiway, and then we can do the fueling out there. Well, now you have the fueling where planes can park. Makes it a lot easier to move trains and aircraft in and around, so.
okay.
Yes, we do have a project in there proposed to increase that parking, redo the fueling around,
Alright,
so. I could go over, if you want me to, some of the project costs, but I know you were provided those.
yeah,
I know there's some very scary numbers. There's no doubt about it. We've tried, like every project we do for you guys in planning, we've tried to account for as best we can increase future costs. So knowing that some of these projects could be out at the 5, even 10 year point, we've tried to, not say, hey, this would be what we bid today, or in most cases, 6 weeks ago when we still have good bid prices now, but, so we've tried to give you a worst case scenario that far down the road.
what's the possibility of purchasing that 19.8 acres south of there?
We have not made any attempts right now at contacting the landowner.
Okay,
This is purely planning because, and if you guys as a governing body said, no, we don't even wanna go down this road, then, it wouldn't have been worth anybody's time necessarily to go out and talk to anybody, so.
okay. Alright. Any questions?
Anything from,
I'd just add that in the medevac situation,
Yeah,
a large plane like a Beechcraft King Air and fixed wing, it has the ability, those would if there's icing problems where a chopper can't fly, these type of aircrafts, if they have enough runway, can land safely. I mean, there could be situations where they couldn't even make it, but, they would be more versatile with the ice. They have boots on the front edge of the wings that could shed off the ice and,
Or even in low visibility situations, not
Right.
necessarily
Yeah.
icy, just low visibility situations.
the other nice thing about what I was saying about the airport not having the instructions, when we get done with a runway like this, we actually go through the process with the airport to get approaches approved. And these approaches now are all GPS approaches. So all it takes is the piece of equipment in the aircraft, nothing else physically here at the airport. But because you don't have any of those obstructions sticking up, it allows us to get a lower minimum approaches. In other words, the cloud height can be lower and the visibility less for aircraft to get in, because we don't have that other stuff sticking up. In other words, if we had a cell tower 2 miles away, they'd say, plane, you really should use this GPS approach unless you can see a full mile. Where now, since we know we don't have anything sticking up there above 150 feet, now they might say, okay, visibility could down to be 3/4 of a mile. So it helps us, get better bad weather, approaches into the airport.
Okay. All right.
So, I really just want to go over this with everybody. We plan on getting this, the report is wrapped up. We have not sent it to the state until we given it to you guys. And so now our next step, unless somebody sees something they want majorly changed with it, we can still make alterations, but our plan is to get it sent into KDOT, finalized. So that they can be ready to accept a grant application if you guys so wish to move forward, later this summer.
All right. Okay.
So that's the plan.
So Darren, we don't need, approval at this point to seek, to go ahead with the next phase of our,
The only thing that we would need approval on, and that's really up to the
We
local
need an
board.
approval, this evening we need an approval by the governing body to go ahead and make this submission to KDOT Aviation to get us on file. This is our comprehensive plan, our 20-year plan for the airport. By doing that, then we'll cross the next steps, which are September cycle.
It's September cycle is when the grant has to do, so we'll come back to the council, meet with you guys, and then come back to the council probably in that July timeframe, maybe August.
But that's really the first step, so to speak, right? And what was that number on that?
The land acquisition number, which would actually be, just to put you guys in frame of reference of budget years, when we apply for KDOT money in September of this year, it's actually for their FY, I've gotta think about this, it has to be for FY 24 money, which starts in July of 23. So it's a full year down the road before that money would come available. So, and we could actually spend it into the next year, so it depends on how you guys want to put it in your budget year.
We could budget it out 2 to 3 years, right?
It could be 2 for sure,
Yeah.
right? And right now, the local cost on that's, probably in the $20,000 to $25,000 range.
Yeah.
22.9 is what that would assume on the budget cycle that we're coming up against, that you wanted to go ahead immediately on all of this. It would be a budget liability of 22,931.
Okay.
But again, the flexibility, we can open that window up at least 24 months, and it's pretty easy with the 2 calendar year disconnects to work at 30 months on the financing.
So if you said, no, we didn't want to budget the full 22.9 for this next project, in your FY 23 budget, you could actually split it between your 23 and 24.
Mhm.
So,
And if we don't take this step, we can't get to the next step.
it would be best to have concurrence here, otherwise when we come back, whether it's this council that's seated or a future council, that way this is plans.
Right, I just wanna make sure this council understands they're not deciding on, what was it, 250 or 300,000?
No.
They're deciding
Yeah,
on
what my cost
22,000,
is,
hopefully
it's all
spread
down the
over
road.
2 years.
It could be out there, 3, 4, 5 years. On the-
But if we don't do this, we can't get to that.
Correct,
and
that's correct.
It's a step process, and there are economic development impacts as well as impacts to strengthen the hospital. So, that was the one that kinda really got me, I'm also on the hospital board, and we've got a great hospital, we wanna try to keep it, but I think we all see once a month or once every couple of months, TV things on the news saying rural hospitals are in trouble. This would give us an opportunity to help strengthen our hospital, and it would be just another check mark by St. Luke saying, don't get rid of St. Luke, we gotta have it, so.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move on. Move it.
Move
Get started.
That's your motion?
You have the money somehow.
Okay.
I'd like to make that motion, however, he said.
To move forward for the purchase of the.
Well, no, actually, this was to approve the airport master plan.
Okay,
And
You approve the
submission
10%
therefore to KDOT Aviation.
all right, so you move to support the 10% match for the grant. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Hold on,
We're
we're not doing, there's no
we're not
grant
voting on a
tonight,
grant
nothing
tonight.
grant related, all we're doing tonight is,
Let them apply for it, right?
no.
All we're doing tonight is approving the plan,
Okay,
approving the master plan.
all right. So we have a motion to approve the master plan. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried 5-0.
I'll come back and see you in the July, August timeframe to ask about applying for the grant.
Okay,
But that way, we wanted to get this one cleared up with you guys, so that as you go into your budget sessions, you kinda have some of these in your head for not only next year, but, future years of how you might wanna try to plan stuff.
all right. Let's get to item number 10, charter ordinance number 21, administrator contract and appointment process. You wanna start with this, Brian?
Okay. Our charter ordinance was started off as 19 and then became 20, and now will become 21. Basically, we had to change our charter ordinance when elections were moved from spring to fall, okay? So that's what started this process.
Right.
As part of our charter ordinance, we had defined residency requirements and then appointment requirements for officials of the city. So charter ordinance 20, which will be repealed by this, is where we cleared up the concerns over residency requirements. And that was passed all last year, everything's put to bed. I've received instruction that part of your advertising for my replacement is that it will be a contracted position and it will still be an appointed position, but there are assurances on the employment. So I got with Brian and he's looked through the language changes necessary in our charter ordinance that governs your form of government, your election timeframes, and your appointment process. And that's what's before you this evening. With this, it would have to be passed, and then it has to be published twice before it becomes the law. So there was some urgency on this, as the advertised deadline for your applicants is June 3rd.
Yes.
Okay, and I would assume you would want to be going into negotiations as quickly as possible after that time frame. So that's what this is all about.
Well, I would move to approve charter ordinance number 21. Here a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay, number 11, interim city administrator services proposal. Roger?
Privately, it's been brought to my attention that there may be some concerns with council with my announced date of retirement, July 1st. With June 30th being my last day planning to work for the city. Those concerns have been expressed primarily around the budget timeline, all of that. After consulting with my wife, if council would desire, I will postpone my retirement until September 1st with a planned exit date of August 15th. So there may be a little bit of flexibility in there depending on if you've got a candidate or my replacement. I'm willing to work through the August 15th to help them gain any institutional knowledge that I can't document by that time. I do have one caveat to that. I do believe that it's only fair that I be compensated at the advertised rate for my successor for a period from July 3rd. And the reason I say the 3rd instead of, I don't wanna mess up Tiffany and payroll cycles and all of that kind of stuff. So if it's the desire of this council, I would postpone their retirement officially to September 1, and then plan to work through August 15. And again, just asking for that same rate of pay from July 3rd, which is the beginning of that pay cycle, until their career's over with the city.
Any question?
Have we looked at any other alternatives, like maybe Lloyd's organization? I know they work with the county for budget. They can
Not
use-
to help
No,
you.
this is,
That's what,
this is a different ballgame.
Yeah, it would be different kind of budget help than we're looking for here.
and Tiff, this isn't something that you can do, right?
Do what?
This is not something that you can do on your own. I know Angela Lane used to do it.
I mean, Roger definitely partakes in a lot more than I do with the budget,
Alright.
but
Well,
if
the
you
other
so
caveat
wish.
to this is the fact that we, you know, if we get somebody hired, say, and, you like this, Roger has a lot of items that need to be addressed and turned over to whoever comes along, and they walk in the door not having any idea of what we've got going. It would be a tremendous asset to us. And if we were to hire a part-time city administrator, you're looking at $5,000 a month.
I'm not looking at that.
Hmm?
I said, I'm not looking at a part-time administrator.
Well, I understand,
I
I'm
think
just throwing that
this-
out there for
this
somebody,
plan would work.
for somebody to come in, and if Roger, you know, left when he was planning on leaving, we'd have a certain period of time there that we'd be without an administrator.
Just
Yeah.
out of curiosity, Dave, how did you do the budget when you were administrator?
When I did it, I just self-taught myself. I got a book, I downloaded the budget for, information from the state, I studied it all, and put
That's
numbers
good.
on
Okay, I'm fine with it.
it. The compensation, Roger and I talked about that, and the compensation he's asking for to be paid the same amount as the person we're gonna hire is $48.07 an hour, so that would be part of the motion.
Would you make that again, 48 what?
I'm sorry, what?
What was the amount?
$48.07 an
Thank you.
hour. Okay?
Yep.
And I would move to hire Mr. Roger Holger as interim city administrative services from July 1 to August 15th, correct? Is that correct? And compensate him, at the rate of $48.07 an hour. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
How many hours is that figured on?
40 hours a week.
Oh,
salary.
Yeah. So it'll be for a month and a half, basically.
40 years.
Right,
6 weeks, yeah.
yeah, cause he will continue to work at his current rate until June 1st. And then June 1st was gonna be his retirement date, and we'll just pay him from July 1st, I'm sorry. And then we'll continue paying the additional funds from July 1st to August 15th. Any further questions? Okay. All those in favor,
Need to
signify.
say the third for you and the payroll, are you okay with the motion? I don't want to compound the issue for you.
I would
Period
prefer
would
the
be-
third.
The period would be from the time frame July 3rd until I terminate my employment,
Okay,
okay?
all right,
And that way it gives you the flexibility. If things work out and you need me gone sooner, I go sooner. If you need me
okay,
to try to help someone till the 15th or whatever gives them a reasonable comfort level, then I would still be available. And again, I'm just trying to make the easiest transition for
I appreciate that.
anyone that I can. Because
Okay. I'll amend the motion to, the expiration date would be whenever Roger.
it begins July 3rd.
Hmm,
Or July 3rd, yeah.
July 3rd is when it begins.
right,
And go ahead and make it August 15th, we can cross that later, but
All right, everybody understand? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Alternative compliance examination engagement contract for ARPA FRF, whatever that is.
Mr. Barker was referring to the $6
Yeah,
billion that the state got that went to the county. And then the counties were to share that with the cities. There was another route available to what's called non-entitled units of government, which we qualified as a city. We applied and received $135,441 that we sequentially used for the rehab on the water tower, okay? The feds, all of this, they issue guidelines from Treasury under what they call the interim rules. And then they had a final rule that they came out that became effective April 1st of 2022. Within that final language that came out, in addition to the direct reporting that we've had to do to the Department of Treasury on their website, they are now wanting either a single audit performed on those funds, or they've offered this examination engagement, a new name in the audit world. We've not seen that. The advantage is the Lloyd Group will do that part of the audit for $3,500 fee rather than the $75,000 to $10,000 fee for a single stream audit. I have gone to the State Department of Recovery, asked for validation there, and I've gone to the US Treasury. And with the final rule on ARPA funds, they are requiring an independent review of how the funds are utilized.
Right.
It's unfortunate, ours, we got all the money in, we put it all in one project that everybody in the town benefited from, but this is part of the federal package that came out. I'll be glad to share that 151-page document with any of you.
I don't think I need.
So this evening, we're asking council to approve an engagement letter with Lloyd Group LLC, which is our auditors, to complete the examination engagement review as required by federal law.
I will so move.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, same sign.
Sorry, I didn't vote.